Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening here on Facebook. I'm so excited to be joined with two authors tonight. We've got Jessica Berry and Kimberly McCreight here with us. Jessica Berry is a pseudonym for an American author who grew up in a small town in Massachusetts and was raised on a steady diet of library books and PBS. She attended Boston University, where she majored in English and art history before moving to London in 2004 to pursue an MA from University College London. She now lives in Portland, Maine, and she's here today to talk to us about her latest thriller, Don't Turn Around, which just came out yesterday. And here, Don't Turn Around. We're also joined by Kimberly McCreight. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Reconstructing Amelia. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, we're kind of joined by her. You still there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I'm having technical problems. Sorry.
That's all right. I think it was just for dramatic effect hearing your intro to come and go. So you're back now. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Reconstructing Amelia, which was nominated for the Edgar, Anthony, and Alex Awards and was called Entertainment Weekly's favorite book of the year. She is also the author of the New York Times bestselling young adult trilogy, The Outliers. She lives in Brooklyn, New York with her husband and two daughters, and her latest book, A Good Marriage, came out in May. We're happy to have both of you with us this evening. So John is, you can't see him, but John from Murder by the Book is lurking in the background, and he will send me questions from the comments. So as we're talking, if you think of something, go ahead and type it in the comments, and we'll get to those a little bit later on. So ladies, we're living in a crazy world. How are you?
Yeah, surviving, I guess. I mean, readjusting to, this kind of thing rather than live events and, being locked in the house all the time. But I'm in Maine, and Maine is starting to open up a little bit. So it feels like soon we will be back at least a little bit in the wild, which is nice.
Yeah. How about you? Can you hear us?
Yeah, so I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. So we've kind of been in the epicenter this whole time. So this feels much better. Like New York is obviously in a much better place. So yeah. I will say that there were some harrowing weeks there when like all you heard was the sound of ambulances in Brooklyn. So and it was really, there were like 2 or 3 weeks where it was really, really, really bad. But we're all healthy. We've been healthy. We're all about to kill each other and, completely over the pandemic quarantine thing. But again, we're much luckier than a lot of people. We made it through fine.
Yeah, absolutely. The Houston numbers are spiking now, and we did so well and social distance for so long, and then we reopened, and it's not good. So we're all doing the best we can, but it's starting to get a little scary here. So let's dive in. I always ask authors to start out by giving basically an elevator pitch of your book. Why don't you start, Jessica?
Okay, so Don't Turn Around is about 2 women who are in a car and they're driving on this extremely deserted road that cuts through the middle of the New Mexican desert. It's the middle of the night. As the reader, you don't know how they know each other and what they're doing in the car together or where they're going. But you realize that they're both really on edge. And as the novel unfolds and as their journey continues, this pair of headlights appears in the darkness and starts to come after them. And it's this truck, and the truck seems completely hell-bent on driving them off the road. And at first you think that maybe it's just like a prank or kind of like freak road rage accident, but the truck comes back and comes back and comes back. And together the women have to figure out who it is that would want to kill one of them. And so from that, the sort of secrets of their 2 lives are unspooled.
Sounds great. How about you, Kimberly? Are you there?
I'm sorry. I'm having the worst technical problems. I swear that I've done like a million events and this is not happening. Sorry. I'm going to be the annoying person with technical problems, but I'm back. I'm just trying to I've got 2 Wi-Fis and it keeps taking over on the wrong one. Sorry. Is it my turn now to go?
It is your turn.
Okay.
It's your turn for an elevator pitch. No, it's all good. Just Yeah, your turn.
We'll make it through. All right. So A Good Marriage is set in Park Slope, Brooklyn. It takes place over 1 week in the summer when most of the kids are gone to sleepaway camp, and their parents are gearing up for the event of the summer, which is an adults-only party with a sexually adventurous side. Sexually adventurous but fun. Every year it's just been a good fun. But after this year's party, a woman turns up dead, and her husband is quickly accused. He reaches out to a former law school classmate named Lizzie for help. Lizzie is an outsider to the neighborhood, and as she's drawn in, she quickly realizes that neither her friend nor his wife were who they appeared to be. But then she soon realizes that maybe her own husband isn't either. So it's part domestic suspense, part legal thriller, but it's also meant to be a genuine exploration of what it means to sustain a marriage over time, and the secrets some couples keep and the compromises they make in order to stay together, whatever the cost.
Awesome. So within this genre of psychological and domestic suspense, it seems like the more twists, the better. Few of these books have a linear case with one guilty party at the end. Do you know all your main twists and turns going into writing, or do they come in the writing process?
I don't. I wish that I did. I wish that I was somebody who was a careful and clever plotter, but I'm not. I always set out when I start a book thinking, okay, I'm going to have this outline and I'm going to stick to it and I'm going to have a chapter breakdown. And then as soon as I start writing, it always goes haywire. And that is part of the fun of writing, is that you get to surprise yourself and you get to kind of, your brain, I think, is always sort of whirring away in the background and kind of will kick things up that you're like, oh, that is better, that works. But it's also frustrating because I end up writing and rewriting and doing a ton of drafts. So that's where a lot of those kind of twists for me end up popping up, is in the redrafting rather than in the plotting stages.
And you?
Yeah, I'm the same kind of style. Like, you know, they say there's like, you're either an outliner or a pantser, like a fly by the seat of your pants. So it sounds like Jessica and I are in the pantser group. So yeah, I don't know either. I really start from the theme. So for me, it's like, you know, I start with A Good Marriage, and it's a question I'm interested in, and then I get my main characters. I usually have a sense of the general spine, and usually, like, if not the whodunit, the who didn't do it. Like, I know, you know, some basics at that point I'm writing to. But you're right, the getting from here to there is the tricky part, and I get all that. I just write scene by scene every day. And it's funny to do these events now, like when you have a book done, you're working on a new book, and it's hard to remember what you did in the last book, but, you know, I'm working on a new one, and I'm like, oh my God, I really do write that way, where I have no idea what I'm doing. This is an insane, ridiculous process. But it does, as Jessica said, you have to, it just means your work is backloaded, right? You can either do it in the front in the form of an outline and work it out, or you can do it in the back end and just revise. And I think you're just choosing, well, I'm not really choosing because I can't do an outline. I sit there and I just can't figure it out that way. I have to see it and really live in the skin of the characters. And so you're just signing up, as Jessica said, for a lot of revision and for a very messy process. And you just have to trust that that's part of it.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better that it's not just me, my insane chaos.
No. And I actually think, this is not, you can write wonderful books outlining them, but I do think it gives you an opportunity, if you're not married to an outcome, to stay with your characters. And I think it actually allows, you know, just a word for the pantsers and support of all pantsers in the world, but like, I think it allows your twist in your book to be organic, because you're not tied to an outcome. You already know the whole thing is like a mess, right? Like, so you're like, all right, well, that didn't work, so I'll go in this other direction, or this feels right to me at this moment. And I think that talking to groups about A Good Marriage, some of them are like, oh, I thought maybe X was going to happen. And it's funny because at a certain point, I thought X was going to happen. And it, I think, is there's like an echo of it left in the book. And so I think I'm just going to put a shout out for that in favor of this ridiculous method that takes a lot of work.
Well, in a related question, one I always like to ask, do your characters sometimes take the wheel, or do you always have full control of them?
I don't know that well, yeah, they sometimes do take the wheel a little bit. I don't know that I don't know that they necessarily drive like plot changes in terms of twists and things, but I think that they definitely drive the dynamics between each other. So, and that will shift as I get to know the characters more. So for this book, because so much of the novel is these two women getting to know each other and being in this very claustrophobic space of this car, so much of the writing of it was figuring out the two of them and how they would actually talk and how they would end up forming this bond, because they're very different. So I think in that respect, it shapes the novel, but I don't think that it has shaped the outcome, if that makes sense.
Sure. How about you?
Yeah, I think that I think it's a somewhat similar thing, although I often will start with the character. Like in this case, my starting place was Amanda, and she's really not ultimately, she's the woman who's dead, and you do get chapters narrated from her point of view. But she's actually not the more heavily weighted character. That's Lizzie. So I would say Lizzie kind of came in and took over the book a little bit more. That's happening in the book I'm writing now. There's a detective character that was meant to kind of just be a minor foil, and then like she ended up with a backstory, and then like I was like, oh, I like really like this voice and this person and this idea. And so you know, I think it does end up in a way shaping the story.
Well, you set me up perfectly for my next question, which is both of you have kind of two main women. Obviously, you have two in a pressure cooker of a situation in the car, and then you have the murdered woman as well as Lizzie. Which character traits do you relate to with those characters? If you're looking at yourself, where do you find yourself in those characters?
Well, I think that, so Kate is the younger character. She is in her kind of mid to late 20s, and her life is more chaotic. So she's more of that kind of like, she's more like an echo of who I used to be, I think. So I remember being that person who was like scraping by and trying to figure out what they were going to do next, and kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And also like really fighting for herself. I think that she's like really scrappy, which is something I really love about her. And Rebecca is she's a little bit older. She's my age, she's kind of late 30s, and she is more of, she wants to do the right thing. She wants to be good. And I can relate to that. Like definitely when I was a little kid, I was like kind of Lisa Simpson, like, you know, never want to break any rules, never want to upset anybody. And so that part of me has definitely informed her. And that I think that she's like, she wants control over her life, and she wants things to be a certain way. And I can definitely relate to that too, especially as I get older. Get more set in your ways.
Yeah. Kimberly?
I would say Lizzie is the character who's closest to me probably in the book. Enough so that she was proved that made her the most difficult to write for me. I actually think it's hardest to write characters that are closest to you, because you end up collapsing yourself into them and you under explain things when it's a character that's oh, I like that the cat showed up. It wouldn't be a Zoom if like an animal did appear. So yeah, so I had to work really hard to create nuance in her and to explain things that I was under explaining. I can remember like my agent being like, what about X and Y? I'm like, well, you know, like how somebody is. And she's like, no, like, I actually don't know that. That's because you know that because you're like that. So I had to explain her more. And then in the doing of that, she became less like me, of course, you know, so as you really figure out like, who is, which is great, you know, then you have to ask yourself, which you should be doing with every character all the time, like, who is this person? Why are they doing this? And why would they be like that? And The more you drive, you drill down on those questions, you just end up with story, by the way, too. But you end up with a much more nuanced take on everything.
Yeah. Speaking of you being similar to Lizzie, your setting is basically where you live, right? In Park Slope. And Jessica, yours is not at all. You are New Mexico. So I always feel like the setting really informs the story. How did you choose your settings and make you pick those places?
So for me, it was a couple of things. I think that because I lived in England for such a long time, so basically for my entire adult life, I was in London, and the landscape of the UK is so different from that of America that I think that in both Free Fall and Don't Turn Around, I think I sort of unconsciously, I was like drawn to those kind of like big, dramatic, insane scaled landscapes that really you only get in America. So that was, I think, part of why I was sort of drawn to the idea of this kind of like desolate, crazy desert. And another part is actually through, because of the plot in a way. And so a part of the plot is about a charity that provides abortion access to women who can't drive themselves to a clinic. And I chose Lubbock because it's one of the cities in America that has over 50,000 people that is, I think it's something like 300 miles away from the nearest clinic. And so I wanted to show how long that journey actually is. So part of it was a choice that was kind of through necessity because of the plot.
Yeah. And Kimberly, just did the plot inform your setting as well?
I love my neighborhood, despite I think some people's takeaway from my book. But I do love my neighborhood, and I think it's a really unique place because it's a bit of a small town in an urban setting. I think it's a very unique place in that way, because you know everybody. You really do. After you've lived here a long time, you know them from the street. You see people you know. You go out, like you have to it's like, or being on a college campus. Like if you don't want to see somebody you know, you have to like walk a different way so you can avoid them. Not that I do that ever, but so. It has that small town feel, but it's obviously a very sophisticated group of people. It's got like more writers in the zip code than anywhere else in the country, in the Park Slope zip code. So, and journalists and filmmakers. And so it's a really, I think people are very politically active. So it just creates a very vibrant dynamic. And so I love writing about my neighborhood. So that's really what drew me to it. I like writing about the actual places, like all the places in the book are real places. And it's also a neighborhood I know. So I was really drawn to it in that way, for sure.
I mean, it definitely comes off that it's your neighborhood in the book. So I believe that, but people don't always like to set bad things in their neighborhood. So
I can see why, given what, I can see why. So we'll see. I've been quarantined, so I haven't really run into too many people. So we'll see what happens when I go back up. I don't know.
That's funny. For those of you who have tuned in late or are just joining us, we're talking to Jessica Berry about Don't Turn Around and Kimberly McCreight about A Good Marriage. Both authors, while I have you, both authors have been gracious enough to sign book plates for us. So if you wanted to order a copy of either book through us, you will of course get a signed book plate. I have failed in my moderating duty and did not bring them home with me, so I apologize. But normally I play Vanna White and hold them up, but we do have them and they are at the store. If you did miss the beginning of this, if you check back on Facebook later, the whole video will be available. Plus we'll get it uploaded to YouTube later tonight or tomorrow. And so you can find all of our author events on our YouTube channel. So back to this, I understand that there are all sorts of big things happening on the TV and movie front for you, Kimberly. Can we have a TV movie moment and discuss that and then see if Jessica's got anything to add to the conversation?
Sure. So, A Good Marriage has been optioned by Amazon and Blossom Films, which is Nicole Kidman's company, to be a series. And David Farr, who was the writer for The Night Manager. I don't know if you saw that, but if you didn't see it, you should, because it's amazing. But he wrote that, and so he is adapting it as a series on Amazon. So I'm really excited. Blossom actually also is the company working on adapting Reconstructing Amelia, which is my first book, at HBO. So it's great to have the opportunity to work with them again. So so I'm really excited. I don't have any to the moment updates, but I know that they're already working on it. So that's very exciting.
Well, it's great to have someone like Nicole Kidman in your corner. I mean, she can get stuff made too. So that's fantastic. How about you, Jessica?
So nothing yet on Don't Turn Around, but Free Fall was optioned for film, and I know that there's a script. And last I heard, they were shopping it to directors, so I'm waiting to hear more on that.
That's all fantastic. Fingers crossed. Who are some of your literary inspirations, and what have you read and loved recently? Bonus points if it's some perfect pandemic escape read.
Well, I personally love Laura Lippman. I think that she's fantastic. I read everything that she writes. Dennis Lehane, I think, is a complete master of the genre. Mystic River is one of my favorite books. And whenever I'm feeling kind of uninspired, I'll go back and reread it because there's always something more to
Hey, Jessica, if you can hear me, you're breaking up.
Oh, she's frozen. I thought it was me.
It's not you, Kimberly. She's frozen this time. You know what? I'm going to pause for a second and let's go to you, Kimberly, for your literary inspirations and see if Jessica catches back up with us.
Okay. So they're kind of all over the map, but I would say The Hours by Michael Cunningham is a huge inspiration to me, just from it's got multiple points of view, and that shifting perspective. Also, The House of Sand and Fog is another book that was told that way. So those were kind of early books that I read that were really inspiring to me from that perspective. I do get a little scared about reading too much in my own genre, to be honest, just because it can become a bit of an echo chamber. So Laura Lippman, as Jessica said, is amazing. I've read all of her books. She's What the Dead Know is one of my very early books I found incredibly inspiring. So I think she's, and she also writes kind of or that book at least was from, kind of multiple timelines, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And she manages to get in really big, thought-provoking themes. Megan Abbott is another person who does the same. And I think Gillian Flynn, as far as I'm concerned, is still the gold standard for crossing character with mystery. And I just, she made me miss reading Gone Girl and miss my subway stop, which has never happened to me before, ever. So she'll always have that badge of honor, which I'm sure she really needs, but it's true.
All three of those and Dennis Lehane too, are big favorites of mine. So I completely get behind that. Okay, Jessica, continue. You were at Laura Lippman.
Oh yeah, sorry, I went away, but now I'm back. I'm reading the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
Yeah.
By Grady Hendrix, which I'm about 100 pages in, completely loving it. It's a real treat, and the writing is so effortless and so engaging and quite funny, but it's already getting kind of scary. And I am a total wuss when it comes to gore and things like that. So I feel like it's going to be one of those books that I can only read during the daytime, and will probably have to leave in the living room when I go to bed, just so I know it's not around. But I'm really loving that. So that's and it's quite a good escapist read, I think, because it is lots of fun.
Sure. Okay, so I know it's probably tough with everything going on, but are you both working on anything right now? Are you currently writing?
Yeah, I am. I am working on something that that's why I feel really, glad that Kimberly has a similar writing pattern, because this one has been a lot of drafting and redrafting and pulling it apart and putting it back together again. But I feel like I'm I feel like I'm on the right track now. And it's interesting. I don't know if you found this too, Kimberly, but the lockdown, I feel like either I have days where I'm like crazy productive and am like really focused, and then other days where my brain is just doesn't come to the party at all. And I think part of that is like just the attention span thing is sort of frazzled from the situation. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like writing under these conditions is obviously like, whatever you have. I don't work from home. Usually I go to an office space. Like, so you're kind of, it's hard to structure your time and focus under the best of circumstances when you're reading something new. So obviously this has not been helpful for anybody, whatever job you have, like all of us working from home and on top of each other and whatever, is not helpful. So, but I have a new book. I have a book due release soon. So I have been working on that, and it's due in September. It's supposed to come out next June, I think. So I'm excited about it, and it's helpful to just have a deadline. So, I'm working my way there, but as it's a mess right now. I have faith that it won't be a mess by September 15th. So I keep hopeful about that.
You've still got time.
Yeah.
I sympathize. It's the bookstore. It's been for months. I've been on overdrive and working every waking minute. And then the last few days, I've felt like I'm incapable of doing anything. Like it's finally hit that wall. And I said yesterday that I burned too bright. I'm worthless right now. But today I got a lot of stuff done. So I think my brain just needed a forced break and to get back into it. If anyone has any questions in the comments or has questions, put them in the comments and I can get them. I don't see that we have any questions so far. I always like to, when I do an author interview, talk about you yourself and get to know you better. So I bring out a couple questions from the Proust questionnaire, not the terribly difficult ones. For those of you who don't know what that is, Marcel Proust came up with a group of questions in the late 1800s where he would ask them at parties and whatnot to get to know people better. So I will just do a few of the, again, not terribly difficult ones on the spot. So what is your favorite prized possession that is, I put the caveat on that it's not a family member or a pet, an item?
For me, it's probably my engagement ring, because I don't have a wedding ring. I just have I am married, but I just only have the engagement ring, and I just love it. And it's kind of the only nice thing I own, I guess. And I'm not like a jewelry person at all. Like I don't really wear a lot, but I wear that every day. So that's probably if it was like a burning building situation, that would be, apart from the cats and my husband, number one.
How about you, Kimberly?
I feel like I should say my wedding ring or my engagement ring, so it makes me look like a bad person now.
No, not at all.
No, I'm kidding. It's a necklace that I got actually fairly. You asked the question, and the first thing that came to mind is the necklace that I got in Israel that I'm not wearing right now. But I actually got nervous about where it was the minute you asked that question. But I took it off. It's the hand of God. And I don't actually know what the correct name of that is. But anyway, I got it in Israel this past summer. A friend's son was having a bar mitzvah, and I got it in Svat, which is this like crazy spiritual town in the mountains. So it'd be very hard to get one again. Although I thought I lost it the other day, and I was telling my friend, I was like, "You're gonna have to find somebody in that crazy hill town to get me another one." And so I'm very attached to it.
That's great. What traits do you most admire in a person?
I think grace is one. Sort of fortitude, I guess, and empathy.
How about you, Kimberly?
Loyalty, which makes me sound like a mob boss, I think.
Okay. It also could be a topic for discussion in a good marriage too.
There you go.
aside from writing, what talent would you most like to have? Clearly you have the writing talent, but what other talent would you most like to have?
I always wanted to be able to dance. I am a not great dancer. I'm a really bad singer. My dancing is like mediocre, but if you give me like an 8 count, it's all over. I can't do anything at all. And so I've always like seen people who can like really dance, and it feels like a magic trick. So I think that.
Kimberly?
I'm going to go with the similar singing, because I'm utterly tone deaf enough so that like my daughters will, if I'm singing with headphones on, I don't realize I'm singing out loud. They'll like hunt me down. Like, for the love of God, stop. Completely tone deaf. But those people could just like sit, like just, randomly at a party, sit down at the piano and sing. I mean, just to me, it's like, it's such an amazing skill. Completely done.
Yeah. I would say, I think from doing these, about 90% or maybe more say musical ability. It's interesting. We always want what we don't have, I guess. So there you go. And then the last question I have from the pre-questionnaire, and again, I don't know, our audience is very quiet tonight for some reason, disconcertingly so. The last question I have is, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
I would say like contentment and safety and feeling loved and having the ability to love.
Kimberly?
These are really hard questions. I feel
I'm sorry.
I know. To answer first, which is
I
totally
have to go
not
first.
I'm like, I've gotten 60 seconds to think about my answer.
I almost called on you first this one to switch it out.
I needed those 60 seconds. Freedom and adventure.
Oh, nice.
But my first answer to that question is I don't know. So that was my first answer. But if I have my 60 seconds, I would say freedom.
Fantastic.
It's the exact opposite answer. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to be like in a bunker. And you're like,
let me go.
Bad about me.
All right. Well, normally these go a little bit longer, but unfortunately I don't have audience questions chiming in. So I think that's going to do it for tonight. I do appreciate you very much joining us. Again, we've been talking to Kimberly McCreight about A Good Marriage and Jessica Berry about Don't Turn Around. We have signed book plates available. For those of our regular customers who are wondering what's going on at the store, we are still closed, but we are doing curbside delivery, contactless curbside delivery, and mail orders. So feel free to get in touch with us if you want to place an order at murderbooks.com, order at murderbooks.com as the email. And you can call us at 713-524-8597. We will be back on Friday night with Kim Harrison, and I think we have 40 authors coming in the next 5 weeks for virtual events. So make sure to check our calendar so that you don't miss one of your favorites. Thank you again so much, ladies. Have a great evening.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real
Bye.
pleasure.